Yo, what's going on YouTube? I am back with another video here. Sorry for the delay, but we're coming in hot this time. I wanted to cover a topic more in the realm of digital art. Specifically, I wanted to create a quick guide on how to create illustrations or splash pieces for characters. It's something I'm, personally continuing to grow on and practice on myself, but I figured why not grow together, I'm hoping with this guide, there's going to be some tips here that help out both new artists and advanced artists alike. We're going to go by a simple step-by-step process and what I personally like to do in the illustration process. I want to iterate that this is my personal workflow that works for me. So if there's things you like to do differently, by all means adapt to what works best for you. This is just one of many different methods you could take to find your own way of creating art. With that being said, to start off of course, is figuring out what your subject matter actually is and how you want to portray them. This is where you begin to concept ideas of the story or illustration and what you truly want to convey. For this video, I'll be personally illustrating a little unknown character from a relatively unpopular show. You may or may not have heard of them. It's some guy named Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece. Yeah, it's pretty low-key, I know. Jokes aside, this show as well as many other anime have inspired my art and creativity a lot. So I thought, with the recent showing of Gear 5 Luffy, I wanted to highlight this really cool transformation from such a beloved character. This illustration will of course be in my style, and I will attempt to convey both the fun and joyful nature of Luffy, whilst also showing that powerful and somewhat scary side of him as well. Once you have your concept and idea figured out, now begins the initial sketching phase. Some folks may feel the need to rush this phase, as they want to get to the fun parts like the coloring and rendering. But this phase is absolutely crucial to ensuring your piece doesn't fall apart late down the line. It's never a great feeling to be halfway through a piece, and then stepping back and seeing how flawed the overall picture actually is, which causes you to restart and question your entire life's decisions, and yeah, I've been there. Too many times to count. But it is what it is, and if that happens to you, just know you're not alone, and that moment is a great learning experience. So with the sketching phase, make sure the proportions, anatomy, composition, and overall design is solid, or at least to the best of your current ability. You can also create small thumbnails as well to give you a greater sense of the bigger picture and composition. Now once you're pleased with the sketch, we can move on to the next stage, the line work. This line work stage could also be reclassified as just a cleanup stage. The sketch may end up messy and unclear, so here we'll just solidify exactly what it is we're trying to illustrate by cleaning it up and making adjustments as needed. Making adjustments throughout the entire process is a common thing too, so don't feel bad if you don't get everything perfect here. As long as you're getting a better idea of the bigger picture, that's what really matters. Quick note, I really want to emphasize the idea of the bigger picture, as a lot of artists may tend to get right into the nitty-gritty detail and forget that the overall message and story of your piece needs to be sold first. Those details won't matter when the entire illustration is off. After that little bit of spring cleaning, we now move on to the next phase, values in grayscale. Now this is a stage where a lot of artists may end up differing from one another. Some artists, who feel they have a strong understanding of colors and values, may end up completely skipping the grayscale phase and just go straight into the coloring and rendering. This of course is completely fine, and there are no right or wrong answers. In some instances I find I go straight into colors, and other times I like to go grayscale first. It's all about personal preference and what works best for you. Grayscale helps in that it gives you a better sense of your values. If you're unsure of what value is in this context, it unfortunately doesn't refer to how much you can sell your beautiful artwork for. Here, the value refers to the range of how light and dark the image may be. Sometimes when jumping into color, you'll find that the overall values may be off, and things either look high-key, low-key, or just overall lacks a lot of contrast. Grayscale helps identify this first, and gives you that leeway to make those adjustments when you need to. The other benefit of grayscale is that you cut out the extra brain power needed to think of colors. You completely stay in the black and white spectrum and solely focus on the values. When you get color involved, you now have to start thinking of the hues and saturation, which can be overwhelming at times. Now if you've done the grayscale method, the next phase is introducing color into the piece. We can do this through a number of methods, but I like using a layer set to the color blend mode. Then I start to create flats of colors on the appropriate parts of the illustration. You'll find the initial colors typically won't be exactly as you'd want. If you just stick with one color blend mode, the colors will look muddy. At this point, you may have to play around with more layers, such as the multiply layer, which helps with darkening color, or the overlay layer, which helps with brightening colors. This part can be a bit more meticulous, but once you get the colors in there, it takes a good chunk of the rendering for you, as you have a solid base now. What's another nice advantage with this phase is that you can make quick color adjustments if you're not liking how it initially turned out. This just allows for more freedom and grace if you make a mistake. Once again, if you went straight into the rendering route, it can be kind of disheartening when you're deep into the coloring and find the colors are not working how you wanted, and as a result, it becomes a lot more challenging to make those changes. Now speaking of rendering, now is the time to paint. This is where you can start rendering out the illustration more to how you like it in whatever style you want. You can start making more dramatic lighting effects, begin adding textures and material work to the piece, photo bashing, working on the background elements, etc, etc. Depending on your goals, this phase could very easily take the longest to complete, as there's potentially always something to work on. This is essentially the final phase, and now those nitty-gritty details that we want to do so bad, we can do it. So the ball is in your court now, and it's up to you to bring your artwork to life. There is an extra phase at the end that I like to consider to give your final illustration that extra oomph to really make it stand out. This extra phase consists of things like adding a filter to the overall illustration and making final value changes to create more contrast, and other things include special effects to the piece to add more dynamic movement and visual interest. This phase is a bit more technical, but you'd be surprised how that extra 10 to 20% makes a big difference. And that's it. Hopefully you found this video helpful in some way. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. Any support is greatly appreciated. Of course, we could get into extremely detailed version, but I wanted to make something a bit more digestible so as to not make it too overwhelming. Perhaps a more detailed version may be available as exclusive content. Speaking of that, I've just launched a Patreon. If you're feeling extra generous to support my journey, that is an option as well. I'm hoping to get more active on these platforms and create exclusive content there in the future. Otherwise, as long as I've helped you grow in some way, that's what really matters to me. Anyways, thanks so much for taking the time to watch my video. Stay tuned for more art content coming your way. Peace and God bless.
Got it!